Hi, I'm Doug,
And I'm Yvette.
and your search for a painfully good podcast is over.
Welcome to Search Complete. Hello, and welcome to Search Complete, a podcast where we see what the internet has been searching for by taking the first part of a question and seeing what Google thinks we want to know. But before typing it in, we'll guess how it auto-completes, and you can play along at home. We can have a good laugh at society's expense, and then we'll realise we actually want to know the answers. Our search phrase for today is, does it hurt?
Yes. Yes, it hurts.
So this search phrase was suggested by our friend Scott. So thanks for that, Scott. If anyone else has any suggestions they want to send us in, you can tweet us at sepodcast_UK.
Or you could just email us at searchcompletepodcast@gmail.com. So what have you thought of that would be auto-completed?
Does it hurt? So my first thing was, does it hurt to get a piercing? And I think it will be but more specific places.
Okay.
Like, does it hurt to get a tongue piercing or maybe a nipple piercing?
Yeah. You don't think ear piercing is going to come up?
I think everyone's got their ears pierced, haven't they? And I think people are maybe not too worried about that hurting so bad.
Okay, so you think it's going to be a specific...
I think so,
piercing.
maybe a more exotic piercing. Yeah. I didn't want to go too out there, but I think
maybe nose piercing will come up. Semi-common one. Along the lines of body enhancements, does it hurt to get a tattoo?
Yeah, I was thinking that as well.
I really, really think that one's going to come up.
Yeah, and I think that might as well be a specific placement one, on the ribs or the wrist or something.
It bloody hurts.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where. I also think one that will come up is, does it hurt to give birth?
I don't know about that, because I think it's kind of just yeah, it does. Is anyone thinking this might not hurt? Better Google it to see, does it hurt to give birth?
Guys might be like that. Oh, are they just faking it?
Just for attention.
Maybe it would be more under, how much does it hurt?
Yeah, what I was thinking on this theme was, does it hurt more to give birth or get kicked in the balls?
Oh, that is an age-old question.
Yeah, because I think we've done quite a few of these men versus women things on our podcast, so we're keeping it up with that.
I think it's just I think it's a common topic in society, which is why it comes up so much for us.
Well, I think it's one of those things that men are can never experience a pain greater than this, and women are just well, hold my Cosmo that I haven't been able to drink for 9 months.
Good one. Along the lines of I guess, going to hospital, does it hurt to either pass a kidney stone or to get a broken bone?
Yeah, maybe. I feel like those are sort of things that are kind of widely accepted to
I think people know that they will hurt, but by searching, does it hurt to, they're going to get a response of how much it will hurt. So they're really searching how much does it hurt to.
Yeah. Yeah, so because it was actually quite hard to think of things that you're not sure whether or not it could hurt. But I put does it hurt when you die? Because a lot of people have had sort of near-death experiences. Yeah,
that's a good one.
So maybe they could weigh in on whether they sort of, I don't know, found that painful. And I think it's a thing people would worry about as well, because there's not
definitely
a clear, obvious answer. As opposed to, does it hurt to give birth? Well, yeah.
Does it hurt to bring life into the world? Therefore, it should hurt
to leave.
To leave. I got another one that I think is a little more out there.
Okay.
But I think could come up is, does it hurt to get a broken heart?
Yeah.
A little sad, but...
I suppose the idea of emotional pain translating into physical pain is quite interesting, and people might...
Yeah, I've definitely read things around a broken heart is a real thing. And yeah, you might not only see outside physical damage, but it does cause internal physiological changes which do hurt.
Yeah, there's a heart condition... I can't remember what it's called, but you can get this heart condition from just the trauma of a heartbreak.
Scary.
Yeah, it's very rare, but they just couldn't figure out anything else that was wrong with these people apart from this huge emotional trauma that they'd recently had.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite interesting. One thing I thought of, does it hurt when you have sex? Or when you have sex for the first time? Because I think especially, I don't know what it's like for boys, but especially among teen girls, there's a lot of rumours that happen. Oh yeah, it's really going to hurt. And, all this stuff.
It's on films and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of content, especially older stuff, is really trying to discourage teens from having sex. So maybe if you sort of spread this rumour that it's really going to hurt...
Put people off.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Another thing that I thought that was a bit different was does it hurt dogs to wear a collar? Because I think some people have the harness thing, don't they? Because they don't like to have the collar around the dog's neck. Or maybe, like, does it hurt cats to get picked up by the scruff of the neck? That sort of thing. Because I think people are quite attached to their pets, aren't they?
Yeah. So. You're straying away from the human side of things. I think that's a good one. Yeah.
Well, shall we see what the internet has actually searched for?
Let's do this. Let's go incognito. Of course.
Does it hurt?
Google.com. Does it hurt? There you go. Point for you to get your tongue pierced.
Yeah.
Does it hurt to get braces?
Oh, yeah. You can probably weigh in on that.
Really hurts. Oh, another point to you. Does it hurt when you die?
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting. Get your braces off. So a lot of braces. Get your nose pierced. You said that, didn't you? Does it hurt to have a tooth pulled? Ones. Tooth pulled. Also, does it hurt to get a filling? Oh, does it hurt giving birth? It is on there. It is.
At the bottom.
Wow. Who doesn't know that hurts?
Honestly, I think people know it hurts. They just want to know how much it hurts. But they're asking about it in a weird way. The final one here is, does it hurt to give blood? That's
actually a really reassuring thing that people are searching that, because giving blood can help so many people. So it suggests that people are, like, considering doing it.
Yeah. Any of these particularly throwing you off here?
What do you mean throwing me off?
That you're like, why on earth is this here?
I mean, no, I think a lot of the stuff it will hurt, like obviously giving birth and braces. I think does it hurt when you die could be quite interesting just to see what information there is about that.
Yeah, we might have to rock, paper, scissors that one.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone's afraid of the dentist, they might not enjoy this episode.
I will, by the way, guys, I'll make sure to take a screenshot of these results and put them into the show notes, just in case you want to check them out. And if you get something different, we'd be really interested to hear it. So you can contact us on the social medias, which will be in the show notes as well.
Yep.
We're going to go away and research these, and we'll be back in just a moment.
We are back with the first topic, does it hurt to give birth? And neither of us really have any experience at all in this, because...
Especially not me.
Yeah, we've never given birth. So we thought it would be good to reach out to some people who actually have experienced it. So I posted in the She Podcast Facebook group, and the response was so brilliant.
It was amazing.
We got so many responses from people, and some of the stories that they shared, I mean, because it is quite a personal thing.
Oh, it feels super personal.
Yeah, but it just was amazing. So we're going to try and put in a few audio segments, and I'm going to try and quote and name drop as many people as possible. But thank you so much to everyone that replied. We're so grateful, and you are completely amazing. So, Doug, what do you think the overall verdict was? Is labour painful or not that bad?
I would imagine it's quite painful. My only experience is from like movies and TV, and I know Hollywood obviously dramatizes a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But just from talking to other people, you know, my mum for one, I imagine it probably does hurt quite a lot.
Yeah, so I think the overall majority was for yes, it does hurt. So we had quite a few great quotes from people. So Madge just said, like a motherfucker. Anna, for me, 11 on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd rather run 5 marathons.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, she said 11.
11.
And she'd rather run 5 marathons.
Yeah. Back to back, I'd imagine.
Wow.
Well, I mean, some labours do take longer than that, don't they? So I can imagine that's pretty bad. Koya said it felt like hot magma being poured down my body.
Magma? I don't know how you'd know that. I can understand how you might know what running a marathon's like, but magma?
I think with the labour, it's such a unique sensation that it becomes very hard to describe to people who haven't experienced
to us, that might be a very good almost analogy in the fact that magma is really hot, but it moves very slowly.
Yeah.
And, if that was going to be poured down your back, it would move quite slowly, burning all the way.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's another great one from Julie, who's actually written a book called Conception to Confusion.
Expert.
Yeah, so she describes the birthing process as like a street fight, but instead of fists, hot pokers were being used. That and feeling like trying to do sit-ups every few minutes with your intestines wrapped around your neck after they were cut down to only 6 inches long.
Okay.
So that's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it is very brutal. I know my neck is wider than 6 inches. So.
So I asked my own mum.
You did? Oh.
I did, yeah. And she said that she had easy birth, but it was still painful. And she said it was bearable, but not like anything you've ever experienced before. She said the worst part was when the head came through, which Ivy from Fogo Fear of Going Out podcast describes as the ring of fire.
Ring of fire. Not the good drinking game.
No, very, very different from the party game. So do you want to hear a first-hand account of how giving birth can be?
I would love to.
Yeah, so this is Gale's story.
This is Gale from Experiences You Should Have podcast, and I'm answering the question, does it hurt to give birth? And let me just say, oh my God. Seriously. Oh my goodness. Giving birth freaking hurts. It feels like you're being maybe like run over by a car for half a day. And then people are like, oh, you're going to forget about it. You are going to forget about it. No, it hurts. I have broken a lot of bones in my life, and I've got to say giving birth hurt the worst. And I decided to have a natural birth after watching Ricky Lake's Business of Being Born. That was my education for preparing myself for birth at Ricky Lake. And so I just saw these women, they were focused and they were breathing and they were really into it. And so I thought I would have a natural birth too. And so I gathered up, some like Sanskrit chanting. I found some aromatherapy. I got my doula. And then I wrote up like the birth plan, like, don't offer me drugs because it's in my birth plan. I don't want it. I knew that there were risks involved if I took drugs to the baby, and I just wanted zero risks if possible. So I chose not to take the drugs. And then I was wondering, like, will I know if I'm going to be in labor? Like, how will I know? Oh my gosh. Oh, you know. And on my due date at 1 o'clock in the morning, I had been asleep for maybe 2 hours, and I woke up and I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. And before I know it, a few hours later, my doula came over and I am in pain. I am in so much pain. I started vomiting around the room. Maybe that's just how I respond to pain is vomit, but I've never done that before. And they took me to the hospital because I wanted to have a natural birth in a hospital in case something went wrong, that I had doctors there. And so I went in the room and immediately, like, I am naked. Like, I do not want clothes on me. And then I am just screaming in agony and in pain. And then my screams are going out the door, down the hallway, around the corner, through another door, and into the waiting room where I had family sitting there. And they could hear my screams. And maybe it's a little embarrassing, but I would not let anybody else in the room because I'm screaming my head off. I'm naked. I'm like, screw the yoga music and the aromatherapy. I was cursing Ricky Lake's name. And it was extremely, extremely painful. And it didn't stop for 11 hours. 11 hours of pure pain. And towards when at 10 centimeters is when you can push. So like even at 8 or 9 centimeters, I'm like, give me the drugs. And they're like, but it's in your plan. You can do it. I'm like, why did I create this birth plan? Why did I want this? Like it was really hard. And after it was all done, like after even like the baby came out, we still got to deliver a placenta. And I got like nurses pulling and pounding on your belly, trying to get the placenta out. Well, no, that kills. It kills. And then when the baby came out, I tore like really bad down there. So now I don't have any drugs. I'm being stitched up. I've got blood squirting everywhere. I've got a husband with his face turning white, and then it turns out the baby had swallowed poop while she was in me. So now I got like a poop team in there, and I've got nurses like pounding on my stomach, trying to deliver the placenta. Yeah, no, it hurt. It hurt like a mofo. It was the worst pain of my life. And right then and there, I vowed that I would never do that again. And to this day, I only have one child. So that's my answer. Yes, it hurts if you don't have drugs. And the people who say it doesn't hurt, I think they're lying. I mean, unless they're on drugs, and I hear that they like take a nap or something like that. Again, this was Gale with Experiences You Should Have podcast, and I have not created an episode on this.
Oh, well, that sounds like such a nightmare. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Gale. So definitely go and check out her podcast, Experiences You Should Have, and maybe reevaluate whether giving birth is an experience that you would personally want to have. So we'll try and link all the podcasts and people we mention in the show notes so you can check them out afterwards. So on the brighter side, not all women experience that much pain
That is good
during
to know.
labour. So for some, it's just because of the pain management that they've chosen to include in their birth plan.
And that's why it doesn't hurt so bad.
Yeah, so an epidural, for example, when it works, you don't feel anything.
You don't feel anything at all.
Apparently not.
Okay.
I think you're basically just numb.
Waist down.
Yeah. Yeah, so Christina said that getting the injection of the epidural just felt like a bee sting, and she didn't feel anything afterwards, and she just slept and read during her labour.
Wow.
Yes, that sounds ideal. And Samantha said that she tried hypnosis with the first baby, water birth with the second, and then the third baby she was like, epidural, I'm just going to get that. And she said, yep, it was invented for a reason.
Yeah.
But other people, they didn't have, not everyone has the has a medicated birth, and some people just don't find it that painful. So yeah, Ginger said that she's had worse headaches.
Worse headaches. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I mean, I think some headaches are
yeah.
pretty bad. But
I've had a migraine before, only a couple, and they are... I mean,
Yeah.
you just become non-responsive, basically.
yeah, and Jordan said that she's had dentist appointments where she'd rather be in labour.
Wow.
But I think from looking at the other search results that we got on this episode, there's quite a lot of pain and fear around the dentist.
Yeah, we'll get on to that
A
later.
lot of the questions were around that. Yeah, Sarah said that she wouldn't classify her birth as painful either, and she's actually got a whole podcast called Doing It at Home, where they
Okay.
share other people's birth experiences.
So if you want to find more, check that out.
Yeah. Quite a few people mentioned that it was actually a big relief when the baby finally comes out.
Imagine.
And also, Cheryl said that it's pain with the greatest purpose, which I thought was quite a good
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
quote. And Joanne Jarrett from the Fancy Free podcast has sent us an audio clip, which I think covers both of those feelings quite succinctly.
Hi, Search Complete listeners. I am Joanne Jarrett, and I'm the host of the Fancy Free podcast, where we tell our most embarrassing, funny stories so we all feel less alone in our imperfections. One of my very not so fancy stories has to do with giving birth to my first daughter. But the question at hand is, does it hurt to give birth? And my answer is yes, it hurts. Imagine pooping a watermelon. That's basically what it feels like. But it's worth it, because then you get a baby. Have a great day.
That does not sound like fun.
Yeah, I feel like our episodes always come back to pooping.
It does, yeah.
So a few people have said that they've actually forgotten how much it hurt. Like in the moment it really hurt, but then afterwards, as soon as you see the baby, there's like a big endorphin release.
Yeah.
Obviously not the case for everyone, but a couple of people who responded said that they were currently pregnant and they were having like flashbacks as to what they were
Oh,
about
no.
to experience.
We reminded them.
Yeah. And also a few people talked about the importance of mind over matter when preparing to give birth. So Tamarin has quite a good blog post about preparing for her birth, and she said she prepared as if she were preparing for a triathlon.
Okay,
So she did loads of research to know what to expect and found professionals that were supportive of the vision that she had for a natural birth.
A triathlon.
Yeah, and she did exercise as well, like pelvic floor exercises, and in the end she found it a magical experience.
Magical.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and Alexia also says that not everyone finds it painful, and that 25% of women actually say that they didn't find it painful.
People who had natural births, right?
Yeah. So, but she said, like, lots of women obviously do experience pain. That's really
Yeah.
hardcore. But a lot of the pain can be physical. So going into it with a good mindset is really important, because fear creates pain. So if you're very afraid
Yeah.
of giving birth, then you probably experience it more painfully.
Yeah.
So she's actually got a whole podcast as well, which is called Fear-Free Childbirth.
Oh. So if you're pregnant, check that one out.
Yeah. Yeah, see, she said one of the issues is that birth is classed as like the gold standard in terms of pain.
Yeah.
So that obviously is going to make you more likely to fear it.
Yeah. The thing that's resonating with me is just thinking about, like, if you were to go do 10K run or something, and then you're like, oh, you do a few jogs beforehand, you're like, oh, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then you show up and you just, like, worst experience ever. You're, like, vomiting on the side of the street because you didn't prepare for it. But if you train, slowly build up to it, learn about correct running technique, etc.,
Yeah.
you know, probably end up finding it was a fun experience, and you feel happy about at the end of it for this achievement that you've accomplished.
Yeah, I guess this difficult with labour though, because you can't, you know, with running you can just go on a smaller run and then get a bigger
it's
run.
true.
So you can't really like say, oh, well, I'll do a small baby
Yeah.
today, and then you just have to
That's
take the
right.
labour that you're given.
Yeah.
And Jessica and Lenore both talked about like the experience of birth as well is important. So they had both experienced like what it was like on the delivery floor of the hospital. So Jessica
Okay.
had worked as a nurse, and then Lenore had her first birth in a hospital, but because she'd felt pressured by the professionals around her to have it in the hospital. But they found the environment in the hospital very stressful.
Yeah,
And
I get that.
So they ended up opting for home births like later on, and they found that much more peaceful. So really up until
Okay.
now, I thought that it was kind of nuts that you would like willingly choose a home birth. But because I like labour's one of quite a rare thing that is natural, but it can be kind of medical as well. And and it also that depends on sort of how it goes for you in the circumstance. I think maybe it's like a cultural thing as well, because like in the UK, I think we probably are quite medically minded,
Yeah.
and where we've got the NHS as well, you're
doesn't-
not
yeah, it
out of pocket to
Yeah.
go to the hospital to have your baby. It's kind of just expected. But Lucy from the Netherlands said that it's actually the default to have a natural home birth in the
In
Netherlands.
the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Wow. Which is interesting because they have, I believe they have pretty good, like, infrastructure for
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, they said people just tend to only go to hospital if they've got, a medical issue,
Yeah.
or if they particularly
Like
request.
if they were like had diabetes or something.
Yeah.
The likelihood of there being problems were much higher.
Yeah, so she said her labour was extremely painful, but it was also amazing. So, yeah, it's definitely a rewarding experience, I get the impression.
The ultimate achievement.
Yeah. So I think the take home here is that it can be very different between individuals, and even
Yes,
different,
definitely.
like if between one woman and having like one baby and the next.
Yes.
So we've got feedback from Kaz, and she talks about her two very different experiences and the impact expectation can have on how you experience it.
This is Kaz Gaddis, founder of More Than a Parent podcast on Does It Hurt to Give Birth? Like most things, there's a level of truth and a percentage of perspective, especially when it comes to does it hurt to giving birth. Being pregnant gets to a point of being so uncomfortable, in my experience, that you're just ready for this baby to come earthside. Like literally there's a point where I just want to send an eviction notice and say, get out of me now. So there's a different type of pain in that process in itself. When it comes to the birthing process, we've had 2 kids. We did hypnobirthing at a birth center for both of them, and we had 2 completely different births. With the first one, there was no expectations. I didn't know how it would work out. I just knew that I was in ultimate surrender because I didn't know what I was doing, but my body, I trusted, did. So with our first baby girl, Skylin, I was completely in shock when we got to the birth center to find out that while I wasn't even sure that I was in labor or not, I was at 9 centimeters. So we went upstairs into this little cottage room, and I was able to give birth there literally within a couple of hours of getting there. Within just a few minutes of active labor, she was here. That pain, or for some people, they refer to it as pressure, especially if you've gone through hypnobirthing. It was more towards at the end, just getting her head through. So you're welcome for that visual. Otherwise, it was super smooth. With our second baby boy, we just recently gave birth to a kid called Quest. That's literally, his name is Quest. They say that the second time is easier and faster, and I mean society, other moms. And one thing I've learned is take everyone's experience as a grain of salt. Don't take it as a truth, because I totally took it as the truth. I believed it so much, yet it wasn't my reality. Because it wasn't my reality, and because things were so different, it really blocked me from being able to have more ease in my birthing experience. And it made this birth, literally my second birth, 5 times longer, with probably 5 times plus more of that pain, more of that pressure. What I've learned is that question is really just partial to the experience, right? You're able to have more ease when you trust the process, when you trust your body, and you trust the time, and also surrendering your expectations. This is what makes birthing more of an experience and less of the length of the pain or the pressure that you might feel. Also, as moms, at the end of the day, I swear something gets blocked in our head that we forget exactly the level of pressure or pain that you felt, because once they're in your arms, that all just goes away. And now it's the fact that they're in front of you and you're having now their eyes lock with yours. I'm Kaz Gaddis, founder of the More Than a Parent podcast. Thank you.
Can I just say that Quest is such a cool name for a kid? Do you think?
Yeah, it is pretty.
It's so good. So that was Kaz from More Than a Parent podcast. So we'll link her in the show notes as well. And I think to sum up, basically the main thing is to have a birth plan that you're comfortable with.
Makes sense.
And Felicity said that being supported by those around you makes all the difference between positive and traumatic experience as well. And also, like, once you've made your decision about your birth plan, and or if other people are talking about their birth plans, it's important, like, not to judge other people.
Because they're different.
Yeah, everyone's different. So, you know, if you found your birth not that painful, but other people
are opting in
really
for pain management,
need that pain management, that's their, you know, everyone's different, and, you know, every birth is going to go differently as well.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so that was really interesting to hear everyone's different perspectives on that.
Yeah, thanks for everyone that sent in their audio clips or their opinions.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. So, moving on from bringing life into the world to life leaving the world. Does it hurt when you die?
I don't know, are you asking me?
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you.
Excellent.
So I read this article in The Atlantic, which was really interesting, called What It Feels Like to Die. And they have a few quotes from this guy called James Hallenbeck, who's a palliative care specialist at Stanford University. And he uses a couple of really good metaphors about death. So I'm going to steal them and put them in this segment. So the first is about how tricky it is for the living to know death by comparing it to black holes. So he says, we can see the effect of black holes, but it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to look inside them. They exert an increasingly strong gravitational pull the closer one gets to them. As one passes the event horizon, apparently the laws of physics begin to change.
All right.
What do you think about that?
That's interesting.
So basically, like, you don't want to get too close to death, otherwise you can't get back.
Yeah, you can't get back.
Once you've died, you can't really report back.
I wasn't actually thinking about that. I was more thinking about how it's very interesting how you only ever really, as an outsider to a black hole, you only really observe the lack of light, not the actual, like, black hole itself, and how that's quite a good metaphor for death. Like, we observe people dying, but you never really see it.
Yeah, you don't actually see it happening. Yeah, it's quite multi-layered. I thought that was quite good.
Good one. I like that one.
So what we want to know is, does it hurt to die? There are many causes of death which are associated with varying degrees of pain, but that doesn't necessarily mean the patient will feel pain as they die.
Yeah.
So, for example, most people dying from cancer will get a comprehensive pain regimen to help them die peacefully.
Yeah.
So they'll be on various medications, and even cardiac arrest survivors describing pain, but as they lose consciousness, they like enter a dream-like state or have like an out-of-body experience. So as we die, the brain begins to change and different parts of the brain become excited. And one of the parts that becomes excited is the visual system inside the brain, and that's why people begin to see light.
There's a reason
theory,
for
anyway.
don't step into the light.
Yeah, so it's just because, you know, everything you see is processed through your brain, but if the visual system's activated. Yeah, so a lot of cardiac arrest survivors describe their unconscious period and they have this amazing experience in their brain. So they see lights and they describe an experience that is realer than real. And there've been experiments done on animals and they've measured a huge spike in neurochemicals right before they die.
Oh, right.
And they reckon that this is the same in humans, and that explains this sort of feeling of a crazy dreamlike state in the, you know, the seeing of the light and stuff. So the half dreaming, half waking state is quite common in dying people. So in New York, there was this study about dying people's dreams. So they interviewed patients as they died, I think in like a hospice or something, and 88% of people interviewed had at least one dream or vision.
Right, so they interviewed them while they were dying?
So it was probably people, you know, that were dying slowly, like from cancer or something. So then they said their dreams felt different from normal dreams. They seemed clearer and more real. And they were sometimes so intense that they carried into wakefulness, so they couldn't actually tell like what was reality and what was their dream they were having.
Okay.
So what do you think people dreamed about?
I think they will dream about probably the people around them at the time of them dying, or like just basically any strong emotional memories that are focusing on the emotional side of things.
Yep, so you're definitely right with the emotional side of things. They're generally the predominant quality of the pre-death dreams and visions is that they carry emotional significance for the patient. But the top reported dreams were mostly reuniting with people who'd already died.
Oh.
That was number one. And then another one was getting ready to travel somewhere, which I thought was quite
really
interesting. And then another one was dreaming about meaningful experiences in the past.
Yeah. I guess that would explain the, like, my life flashed before my eyes kind of situation.
Yeah, and they there was another study that was similar where they interviewed people who were resuscitated following a heart attack.
Yeah.
And this was actually done at Southampton General Hospital.
Nice.
But of these people, only 7, I think it was, of the 63 people that they interviewed could actually recall their thoughts from when they were unconscious.
And what did they say?
And they said things like reaching a border or feelings of peace. And then one person said jumping off a mountain.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. So they're generally sort of positive things. Surprisingly, the patients that were able to recall their experience actually had the highest blood oxygen levels of the cohort.
As in people who were less dead, or?
Yeah. So I think they'd thought previously the visions and stuff was from brain oxygen starvation.
Okay.
But it turned out that the better brain oxygenation allowed for improved cognitive function during the resuscitation. So that's why they had more vivid experiences and were able to remember them.
As I say, the remembering part seems like the more likely situation.
Yeah. The dreams tend to be comforting and positive and often help decrease the fear of death.
Yeah. I wonder if a lot of this has come from, like, culture, like if there would be any cultural differences, because at least in Western culture, it's like there is an afterlife, you see the light, you will be reunited with people when you die. It's whether, like, that's so ingrained in us that when our brain has this last moment of activity, that's what it kind of just defaults to because it's so ingrained in us.
Yeah, maybe. It would be interesting. No, it is something that's quite difficult to study.
Yeah, it's very subjective. You can't really, like, hook someone up as they're about to die and look at their MRI scan or something like that.
Yeah, there's a different thing about people having, like, where people report having out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
So they'd put up these, I think it was for people who were getting resuscitated from, like, heart attacks and stuff, and they put up these signs in the room, and they were going to ask them if they could had seen them
yeah.
after they like died and then come back, but I don't know, didn't really work because they couldn't predict when people were going to have the heart attacks. So they could get the signs up, and it wasn't really ideal.
Wouldn't be great if like paramedic comes visits you and like it's like, before resuscitating them, quick, we need to set up an experiment.
We need to see if this ghost can see the sign. Yeah, I think the priorities are different, and also like as people die, they tend to like slip more and more into a coma, and they're less communicative.
Yeah, which makes sense.
There was one website where it was going through the sort of myths and realities about death, and one of the myths was dying ends in a final struggle. But in the end, most people essentially die in their sleep because they just sort of slip into a coma that can last for minutes or days, depending on their disease, and then they just drift away. And I thought I'd finish on another poetic metaphor from Hallenbeck, where he said, "It's like a storm coming in. The waves started coming up, but you can never say, well, when did the waves start coming up? The waves get higher and higher, and eventually they carry the person out to sea."
It's fairly peaceful.
Yeah, that's what all of this stuff that I read made it seem like. I think a lot of it was based on the experiences of like palliative care specialists and people who work in hospices.
So it's not quite so a dramatic end, really.
Yeah, so I guess people are well cared for and medicated.
Yeah. One of the things I find I really like the idea of is that, so you know when you're in a dream, you could literally be asleep for like a few minutes and yet days can pass in a dream sometimes.
Yeah.
What happens if you enter this, because I'm sure they've proven that there's like electrical activity in the brain like 30 minutes after death, or at least there can be, that your body ends up like shutting down and there's still this like a little bit of electrical activity, your brain's still awake a little bit, and 30 minutes can literally last forever.
Yeah.
Because you enter an extreme dream where your imagination runs wild.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting idea.
That is what the, people who have talked about the afterlife, that is what they experience, is the last little bit of activity in the brain.
Yeah, I quite like that idea because it means that your afterlife was very personal to you.
Yeah.
And also, like, it is quite comforting that all of these sort of dreams that were described by the patients seemed quite positive and, prepared them for death and made them feel better about it.
Yeah. So basically have a positive outlook on your death and then your brain will do the rest at the end.
Yeah, just live a life that you're pleased with, I guess.
From life to death to the dentist, which may seem like a worst case scenario for some people, which is why I think this came up. And the question is, does it hurt to get braces?
Yeah, I think quite a lot of people do have to get braces, don't they? So it is a thing that you would be concerned about.
I didn't actually look up the statistic, but I would guess like 1 in 4 maybe.
Yeah, probably.
If you think about your friends and stuff like that when you were growing up. And I myself had braces, so I feel like I can be somewhat of an authority on this question. And,
so does it hurt?
Getting them on is pretty painless. It's just like a little uncomfortable, someone's rummaging around your mouth. That's
standard dentist stuff.
Pretty much. But after having them on for a few hours or days, it really starts to hurt. It's that sort of like achy kind of pain. And I think I like to describe it as my teeth just did hit for 2 hours.
Well, and it's like the afterburn the next day.
Exactly. Which, to be honest, is kind of what it's like because your teeth are literally moving inside your gums. That's what the braces are doing. They are pushing or pulling your teeth.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like imagine having your bone moved in your arm or something. Ooh. Yeah, it's not great. And you also get some pain from like cuts on your tongue and cheek where like there's maybe a bit of stray metal or just like general rubbing, and that's kind of uncomfortable. Honestly, the least of your problems though. And then every few weeks you have to go visit your orthodontist and get them tightened up. So your teeth, you get used to the pain because it's like not moving so much.
Maybe it gets less painful as the teeth are readjusred, and
then they tighten all back up again.
They're moving again.
And this, of course, lasts around 2 years. Generally, you want to eat food that is soft, or sore teeth food, as I like it to be called. So things like yogurt, soup, mashed potatoes, smoothies.
Is this why you hate all these foods? Do they remind you of the braces days?
Well, I know.
You don't like sore teeth foods. You don't like yogurt. You don't like jelly or
I've always not liked that.
Anything sort of not liquid, but not chewable.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't like anything of that texture.
No, I think that's pretty normal. Please tell me that's normal.
I was just curious
No,
if that was related to your braces pain, if you'd like eaten 20 jellies
No.
after every brace tightening, and that's why you've got a downer on them now.
No, I've never liked them.
Fair enough. Don't like slurpable foods.
No, I want to chew on something.
You want that sexy spaghetti.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, getting them off is also fairly painless.
Okay, I bet it's quite a relief as well. You've got
It
like
is.
such free teeth.
It's amazing. I'll tell you the weird thing is that your teeth feel really, really smooth.
Well,
Because you're
you
used
don't
to
have
having
the bumpy metal bits on anymore.
They feel super slippery. It's like you don't ever rub your tongue along your teeth and be like, ooh, so smooth. But it literally feels like that.
After you come out of braces, you're like,
Yeah.
so smooth.
You can't help smile. You're just like walking around school like an idiot. Just,
I
like,
can feel
grinning.
the wind on my teeth.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually wondering, do you have any questions as someone who hasn't had braces? If you were thinking about getting braces, you'd want to know. Maybe relating to the pain.
Yeah, I don't know really. My brother had braces, and I think he found the worst thing was getting the mould done.
Oh, I hated that. That doesn't hurt. It just feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think
If you've
he was
got
there like choking on it, and
If you've got like even a mild gag reflex, you're going to be feeling pretty horrible. The trick there, my friends, is like don't try to breathe through your mouth. Just sort of like breathe through your nose.
could you even breathe through your mouth if it was like
You
blocked up with a huge bit of plasticine?
You can, but it just like triggers the gag reflex.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of got to relax and breathe through the nose, and it's not so bad. Took me about five sessions to figure that one out.
Oh, do they keep remolding
Well-
it then to check your teeth are moving?
I had a retainer when I was younger as well, before I had braces.
Oh, so they have to get you new
So
retainer to...
I had loads of problems with my teeth.
So do you regret having your braces from the pain, or are you glad that you went for it?
No, it's definitely worth it. Top tip though is definitely don't forget to wear your retainer afterwards, and continue wearing it. Otherwise, your teeth will kind of naturally shift back to where they were before, and then all that pain is for nothing. So make sure you wear your retainer, but it is totally worth it.
So there we have it, the rundown of the Google search results for Does It Hurt? A lot of people are afraid of the dentist. To be fair, I think that can hurt quite a lot.
Definitely warranted.
But yeah, reassuring to know that it maybe doesn't hurt so bad when you die.
Yeah. So if you ever had a near-death experience and
We want to know about it.
yeah, so you can tweet us on Twitter because that's where you do the tweeting at scpodcast_UK, or you can send us an email at searchcompletepodcast@gmail.com. That's it, guys. If you have enjoyed this episode, please remember to rate and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. I'm Doug.
And I'm Yvette.
Thanks for listening.